Joining me from Tallahassee is the Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran, who is from our area in the Bay Area. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Corcoran. Let's talk about it. Priorities. Give me your top three, and I know you've got 17 on the list, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But in terms of the three things that you say, man, this session we've got to get accomplished.
Well, we talked about a little bit of that yesterday in our opening ceremony, and there's really three big ones that we said we absolutely must do. The first is we can never, at any point in time, ever raise taxes on any individual or any company in the state. That's a non-starter for the House. We will not raise taxes, and we laid that out yesterday. The second one is we will not raid our reserves. Right now, Florida is #1 in the nation for fiscal and financial health. We got that way by cutting taxes, cutting regulations, cutting our debt, and most importantly, having a very robust, almost $4 billion in reserves. The thought that we would go in and raid those reserves during a time of prosperity for pork barrel projects is just absolutely, not only is it inexcusable, it's unforgivable. We will not do it. And the third one is we will continue to fight. I don't care where, who the enemy is. We're going to go up and down this state fighting until we get to a point where every single child in this state, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their income, regardless of their demographics, is afforded a world-class education. And we're going to go crashing against that status quo wall again until we achieve that.
Now, this is a political year, 2018, not that every year isn't, but is the Senate going to be more cooperative because there are other people that are looking at other positions, including yourself possibly, but is there going to be better cooperation? Because last year was kind of a train wreck.
Well, I would rephrase it differently, though, Al. I think what's great, what makes America great, what is very unique is you can have all these different factions, different parties, different people from different regions who can come together, and as long as you're civilly allowing for a free and a robust debate, you're going to come up with great solutions for the people of the state. And last year we had that robust debate, and we had considered one of the most transformational sessions of any legislature in a generation, accomplished more in education, more in the environment, more in tax policy than ever before. And so if we can have that again, even if it means we got to go a day or two longer or three, then the people benefit of this will benefit, of the state will benefit. I think this session that we're going into, it feels when you look at what the Senate outlined, you look what the governor outlined, you look what we outlined, it feels like we are really all pretty much on the same page with the corpus of what we want to do, all very consistent, and I think it's going to be one of the best sessions ever.
All right. I'm not going to go through all 17 of your points, but we put 5 of these that I'm going to put up here, and if I could just get a comment on each one of these, and I'll read them very, very quickly, and you can kind of tell me what they are. HB 5, State Officer Post-Service Lobbying Restrictions. Bottom line on lobbying, what's that going to mean?
Well, we've done it already to ourselves in the House. We have imposed, self-imposed, a 6-year ban. That means when you get done with your service, you cannot go out there and become a special interest lobbyist for 6 years. It's the longest and strongest ban in the nation. What we would like to do is have that be applicable to every single person in this process, and we're going to pass it off the House on Thursday, send it to the Senate, and I hope the Senate passes it, because if all they did is go out there and talk to any single person across this state, every single one of them will tell you, pass that bill, it's good policy.
All right, HB 9, Federal Immigration Enforcement. Basically, this has to do with sanctuary cities and maybe in case of California, sanctuary states. Where do you stand on that?
Listen, I would say this to every person, every speech, every chance I get. What is it that makes America great? What is it that separates her from every single country in the history of mankind? It is our adherence to a rule of law. And if we jeopardize that, if we allow elected officials to abandon the rule of law, pick and choose what laws they will obey and what laws they will not obey, our society is imperiled. Our individuals are imperiled. All you have to do is look at the tragic death of Kate Steinle to realize that the rule of law matters. And so what we're saying there is we will not allow any politician to think they are above the law and they can pick and choose like some multiple choice test what laws they will obey and what laws they will not obey. That will never happen in any arena, any subject matter. We will fight for the rule of law because it is the single most important reason why America is great.
So in other words, if a city decided they wanted to be a sanctuary city and their city council or their commission voted in favor of becoming a sanctuary city, they would be in violation if this passes of state law, and then what would be the repercussions for them if they did?
Well, first of all, they'd already be, it's a form of mutiny, because they're already by doing that, they are in violation of federal law. So they can't even do that. That's an illegal act on their part. And if a local official is engaging in an illegal act, they should be removed from office. So what we do is we add and put even more punishments. We can fine them. We can sanction the elected official, remove them. All of those punishments are available to us, withhold funding, as they are also available to the federal government.
HB 19, let's go ahead. HB 13, sports franchise facilities. Tampa Bay Rays, other teams that wanting to expand. What does that law mean if it's passed?
It means that we're going to separate and say that the public tax dollars are not going to be used for corporate welfare. We're done with corporate welfare for stadiums and subsidizing billionaires to have stadiums built on the backs of the taxpayers. We're done with it subsidizing corporations to come here or stay here on the backs of taxpayers. All of that, all the studies, all the economics have shown that those don't work, and they're losers for the taxpayers, and those are monies that are diverted from police officers, diverted from students, needs of the elderly. We're not going to do it anymore, and so that bill basically says, no, you cannot use public lands to subsidize billionaires' desires to have a new stadium.
You're doing one, HB 19, and we won't comment on this one, Florida Motor Vehicle No-Fault Law. You want to get rid of that, but I do want to get to the last one, HB 7003, Local Government Ethics Reform. Well, let's start out by talking about Tallahassee ethics reform. I know you've been on our air before being very firm and strong against sexual harassment. Now, what has this got to do with then local governments? Tell me how that translates.
Well, we already imposed it on ourselves. So we've said, you know, a lobbyist can't text you while you're in committee or on the floor. You can't fly in a lobbyist or special interest plane. You can't do business with a lobbyist or special interest. You have to disclose and have a registry for what those lobbyists, who they are, and what bills, what amendments, what appropriations they're lobbying for. Now we're simply taking a lot of those measures that we imposed on ourselves and saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They should have those exact same restrictions and ethics laws on the local level, and to the extent they're not going to do it, no problem. We can pass it statewide and say to local officials, do your business in the sunshine, be ethical, and let the entire world know where the boundaries are between public service and the private sector folks who are trying to make hay off of the backs of the public in general. And so it's great. It's a great bill for local governments.
Yeah, and a better definition of what sexual harassment is.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, before there was a single scandal, before anyone knew Harvey Weinstein, this House of Representatives, all on its own, took the initiative to address sexual harassment and implement changes that said not one single person in this whole process will ever be treated without the proper dignity and respect. And now we're going to come back and we're going to do even more to ensure that we have a safe working environment for every single employee.
Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran. Richard, always good talking to you, and good luck in the session this year.
Thanks a lot, Al.